Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 14th Annual New Jersey Institute of Social Justice Gala 2019. Tonight we celebrate the Institute's 20th anniversary. To offer the invocation for the evening from St. John's Unified Free Will Baptist Church in Newark, please welcome the Institute's friend and good counsel, Reverend Philip A. Gilmore.
Good evening, everyone. Come on, let us pray. God, our gracious Father, from whom your entire family in heaven and earth derives its name, we gather with the friends and advocates of social justice, asking you to bless the cuisine, conversation, and collaboration. As we fellowship, we pause to say thank you for the privilege above all privileges, and that is the privilege to worship and serve you. Grant that we will never misuse worship and always embrace service. May the love of Christ dwell in our hearts deeply for each other, because love covers a multitude of sins. Lord, we lock arms tonight with the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. We celebrate the excellent God-honoring work of Ryan Haygood, the board, the Institute's foot soldiers, and all the deserving honorees. Jesus, you said, whatever you do for one of the least of these brothers or sisters of mine, you do for me. The Institute works on behalf of the least of these, the disenfranchised, disinherited, devalued, discouraged, and discriminated. You love them all, Lord, and we follow your lead. We rally to the trumpet call of the fierce urgency of now, in the spirit of what the Gates Foundation calls the impatient optimist. We are optimistic that social reform is imminent. In our dreams, we can smell the ocean water of juvenile justice overhaul. In our dreams, we can hear the glass ceiling of economic disparity breaking. In our dreams, we can taste the sweet manna from heaven of racial unity. However, our dreams are not yet a reality. So we dream with the holy impatience. Now is not the time, as Reverend King said, to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Tomorrow is today, yet our today cannot be our tomorrow. So we act. However, let us not mistake activity for action. True social justice moves beyond the activity of legislation to the action of implementation. True social justice recognizes the hard truth that you cannot legislate heart change. Heart change happens when one person made in your image, O Lord, sees that same reflection in the face of another less fortunate. As a songwriter wrote, open the eyes of my heart, Lord, open the eyes of my heart so I can see you. I thank you, Lord, that those in this place tonight can see you. My prayer is for those outside this place who cannot. Open the eyes of their heart, Lord. Grant advocates and adversaries alike the intelligence to know your will, the courage to do your will, and the devotion to love your will. In the name and spirit of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Philip A. Gilmore from St. John's Unified Free Will Baptist Church, right here in Newark. You are welcome to enjoy your first course. And now let's welcome to the stage the chair of New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, Douglas S. Eakley, Esquire. Doug is the Alan V. Lowenstein Professor of Corporate and Business Law at Rutgers University School of Law.
Good evening. I'm struggling with the text, but so, welcome to our 14th annual gala, which is actually the 20th anniversary of the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. The Institute's inception actually dates back more than 20 years. Alan Lowenstein and Amy had conceived this idea of basically dedicating their family foundation to the advancement of social justice. Alan, on his own, late in 1996, had incorporated the Institute, but it took us a couple of years to get going after that. And Ken Zimmerman became our first Chief Executive Officer in 1999, which is basically the starting point, and Ken is here tonight. So in the interim between the incorporation of the Institute and its operation, we needed some outside perspective and some help. And so one of my first jobs was to find a legal intern. So I called the Dean of Yale Law School, who introduced me to a bright, precocious, eager, and intentional young man whose name was Cory Booker. So in effect, Cory Booker, who I'm delighted that we are honoring tonight with our National Justice Award, was the Institute's first paid employee. Not quite an employee, but an intern. But he helped set us on the road that we have followed since then. So the Institute encourages all of us to do social justice on a daily basis and to join with it to identify, address, and advocate pressing and critical social justice issues of our time. And there's no time like the present to get involved and lend your voice and your support to the Institute's crusades. So as the Institute's board chair, I want to thank all of you for your financial and intellectual support and to encourage you to give generously to the Institute year-round, a sort of a never-ending cornucopia of giving. But our work can't continue without you, and with you, we can move mountains. I'd also like to recognize our diamond sponsor, Paul Weiss, Wharton, Rifkin, and Garrison, and our premier sponsors, RWJ Barnabas Health, United Airlines, and our very own Nina and Ted Wells. I'd also like to acknowledge my fellow trustees who worked with the Institute tirelessly to help lead, guide, and support the mission and the initiatives of the Institute. Trustees, could you all please stand? A word of thanks has to go as well to our development committee and our dedicated staff for putting together another just wonderful friend and fundraiser celebratory of our 40th anniversary and our 14th such event. And again, if I could, a round of applause for those who have made this evening possible. So I'm going to offend some people by not including them in what I'm about to say, but that's purely inadvertent, and for which I apologize in advance. But we have so many distinguished friends and supporters of the Institute here with us tonight, including our senior United States Senator Robert Menendez, Newark Mayor Ross Baraka, City Council President Mildred Crump, former Governor Jim McCreevy, former United States Attorney General Loretta Lynch, whom we recognized last year, and I probably should mention my employers, Marcia Brown, who's the Deputy Chancellor of Rutgers University, Newark, and Dean David Lopez, the Dean of Rutgers Law School. Finally, but not least, I want to single out Essex County freeholder Wayne Richardson, who joins us tonight along with his wife Antoinette. Antoinette serves as Newark's Chief Education Counsel, and Wayne was one of our early participants in our pre-apprenticeship program, and then became the president of a labor union, and now serves as an Essex County freeholder and vice president for the Freeholder Board. So Wayne, welcome back. So thank you all again for joining us. Now to begin the honors for the evening, I'd like to introduce you to a seasoned connector, speaker, and advocate, Ann Deborah Mills. She's the founder of Parlay House, a salon-type gathering of over 4,000 women in San Francisco, New York, London, and Los Angeles, who gather together for a combination of shared experiences, meaningful content, and peer-to-peer connections. Please welcome Ann Deborah Mills.
Thank you. Great to see everybody. You might wonder why I'm up here as one of the few non-lawyers in the room. But in 2003, I was lucky enough to be selected by the Aspen Institute to be a Henry Crown Fellow. And it was a great honor, and I joined 19 other young people who had sort of had early accomplishments in gathering in Aspen and learning values-based leadership. Now, imagine when you get 19 really competitive, high-achieving, under the age of 45 people together, and you're asked to decide the class name. Well, there was a lot of power and competition, and one of my classmates said, "We should be the love class." And there was a lot of snickering by these sort of titans of business until we understood where that person was coming from. You might guess that person was Cory Booker. Yeah. It makes total sense now for any of us who know Cory from the community, from work he's done. Cory, at his core, embodies love. Love is at the center of all he does. In 2006, when some local youths were threatening his life, really asking for people to literally kill Cory Booker, what did Cory Booker do? He asked the prosecutors, instead of punishing these youths, to let him personally mentor them every week to get them on the right track. And he did that. I knew Cory when he was city councilman. He lived in a tent in the street for a period of time to clear the streets of the drug dealers and those that were infesting the community he believed in. And when he became mayor, he lived in the same part of town with the people he represented. And as senator, he continues to live among the people he represents and with the people he believes in. With love at his center, he is seeking the highest office in the nation, and he's been very clear that part of his platform is love. Now, why am I talking about love at a justice-related event? Well, if you think about justice at its center, it's about fairness. And to be fair, you have to be empathetic, and you have to be able to walk in the shoes of other people. And you have to know what someone else is experiencing in order to approach their situation with kindness and with love. So there is no one that I think is more deserving of the national award from this institute for his work in social justice, but my dear friend, the Honorable Cory Booker.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So, you all have no idea. When Mildred Crump stands and gives me applause, it's like one of the best. This is literally one of the best moments of my life. Look, I am so grateful. First of all, I want to thank Ryan. I would not be here if it wasn't for him and making this night work. His leadership is extraordinary. Doug Eakley was one of my first friends coming out of law school, and he was incredible. Him with Ted and Nina Wells. I would never have connected with somebody who's become a role model in many ways, which is Alan Lowenstein. So thank you both for that. I just want to give one little bit of love to two of my best co-workers I've ever had, Roz Baraka and Bob Menendez. Bob and I and the mayor, if there's any two people I know who have actually lived a life about justice, it's those two individuals. This is a little ridiculous to me because you all are giving me an honor when really the lessons I've learned in Newark were hard and tough. I learned from a woman on the 5th floor of the projects who, when I came to Newark with too much of a high sense of self-regard as a Yale law student, I will never forget knocking on this woman's door with this thinking that I was going to come and try to save the neighborhood. And she literally opened the door and looked at me and basically says to me, "Boy, you need some saving." And she taught me the hardest lesson, that change doesn't come ever from the top, it comes from the grassroots up. People who think that Lincoln freed the slaves are insulting the fields of this nation that are still watered with the blood of our ancestors. People who think that somehow we got, the right to vote for women because of a bunch of men on the Senate floor that got together one day and said, "Hey fellas, let's give women the right to vote," don't understand that change has never come from Washington, it comes to Washington. Anybody who looks around the city about the transformations that are happening here, do not forget that the change we're seeing now in Newark is because of so many people who never gave up on this city, who had a defiant love, a chip on their shoulder about this city. In fact, I still remember that same woman, Miss Jones, who took me to Martin Luther King Boulevard around the same time I was working with Alan Lowenstein and said to me, "What do you see around here?" And I described the neighborhood that I still live in today. And I just talked about the problems, the crack house, and she walks away from me saying, "You can't help me." And I ran after her and said, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "Boy, you need to understand that the world you see outside of you is a reflection of what you have inside of you. If you see problems, darkness, and despair, that's all there's ever going to be. But if you're one of those stubborn people who every time you open your eyes, you see hope, possibility, you see love in the face of God, then you can be someone who helps me make change." We are here right now seeing the things we're seeing because of the visionaries that came before us. And when Anne talks to me about love, it is not a sentiment. Love is not a nice feeling that you get. Love is sacrifice. Love is service. And when it comes to this organization, I think Cornel West said it best. What does love look like in public? It looks like justice. And we who swear this oath in this nation, that we are a country of liberty and justice for all, we should all be cognizant that those words are still aspirational. Because we have so many heartbreaking realities. From Shahad Smith that was murdered with an assault rifle on my block last year, to kids in this city and all around America who still drink out of plastic bottles because we have 3,000 jurisdictions in America where children have more than twice the blood lead levels in Flint, Michigan. To a criminal justice system that still shackles pregnant women, that still puts children in solitary confinement, that still has millions of people that cycle through our criminal justice system every single year, hundreds of thousands every single year for doing things that 2 of the last 3 presidents admitted to doing. And so I am grateful for this organization that understands if you connect to the grassroots, if you bring people together, if you organize folks, if you elevate the dignity of everybody, that's how change is really made. I'm proud Bob and I passed some big legislation of recent. Something that I'm really proud of is the First Step Act, that literally, I brought a guy to the State of the Union address last year who was liberated from prison for a life sentence for having crack cocaine that weighed less than a baseball. It is testimony to the work that still has to be done, but we're going to do it from the grassroots up. And so I'm going to end just by saying to everybody here that my father, before he died, was with me in Newark and still bemoaned the fact about the challenges. He said, "I feel like the kids basically that are born today just like me, poor black to a single mom." He said, "I worry that they'd have a better chance of making it if they were born in 36 today because we didn't have, his generation didn't have mass incarceration. They didn't have the homicide levels we have right now where black men like me, 6% of the nation's population, but make up over 55% of the homicide victims." And for me, we have a comeuppance in our generation, and that's why this organization is so essential, and the work of Ryan and his team inspire me every day, is because this country is still falling short, and in some ways we're losing ground. And so the thing I ask to leave you with is, at a time of another tragedy in another generation when King was slain, right there where he was slain, they wrote words from Scripture, which are Joseph's brothers' words, before they grabbed Joseph with his coat of many colors and threw him in a well to die. And they actually chose to write the words of Joseph's brothers where King was slain, and these are the words. It's a challenge to us. It says, right there at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, it says, "Behold, here cometh the dreamer, Let us slay him and see what becomes of the dream. Our generation has to answer that question. And we can't rely on the folks who came before us and their daring, defiant love. It's our turn in this generation to stand up with a chorus of conviction to say, I'm taking responsibility for the dream. I'm going to dream America anew. Because we have a lot of work to do. There are heartbreaking realities out there. And if your heart is not broken, if America hasn't broken your heart, you don't love her enough. This is the moment that our generation has to take responsibility for the dream and do the same kind of sacrifice and service necessary to make the dream come true. And if we do that, I promise you, we can get to a place that justice does roll down like water, righteousness like a mighty stream. We can get to the place where we are who we say we are, a nation of liberty and justice for all. We can get to a place that honors our ancestors and ensures that the children of tomorrow grow up in a country that is who we say we are. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Cory Booker, recipient of the National Justice Award 2019. And now, please welcome the United States Senior Senator from New Jersey, Senator Bob Menendez.
One of the benefits of being the senior senator is you normally get to speak before the junior senator, and it's tough to speak after the junior senator. But let me say I'm thrilled to be here tonight. I just came back from Washington to celebrate this 20th anniversary with the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice. I want to salute all the trustees and all of those who work at it every day, an organization that tirelessly each and every day seeks to build a more fair and more just America, an organization that I honored last year at part of my Black History Month celebration. And I can't be prouder than to see my friend and my colleague, Cory Booker, honored here tonight. At a time of so much division in our politics, few believe that there was a real appetite for criminal justice reform in Washington. These days, there's no shortage of reasons to feel skeptical, to feel cynical, to feel doubtful. But not the junior senator from New Jersey. If there's anything I know about Cory, is that he always chooses to believe in the capacity to find common ground. That's why he was relentless, and I can tell you, I saw it in action. He was relentless in fighting for criminal justice reform. When he first came to the Senate, he asked me, how do I succeed here? I said, you need to count to 60. Because the filibuster basically on major things requires 60. And from that time on, every time I looked for Cory on the floor, he was on the other side of the aisle, working his relationships, working his issues. That's why he was relentless in fighting for criminal justice reform. That's why he worked across the aisle to find bipartisan support. And that's why even after passing the First Step Act, he continued to champion even bolder reforms through the Next Step Act. That optimism for the future, the tenacity to fight for it, the belief in government's abilities to right wrongs and correct course, that's what makes Cory Booker a change maker. And if you don't mind me saying it, I would say a great president of the United States of America, as far as I'm concerned. So, let me also salute all the other honorees, particularly Nina and Ted Wells, who I know so well. Their work is extraordinary for so long. As I look around the room tonight, I'm inspired to see so many local leaders, activists, supporters who share in the mission of the Institute for Social Justice. The work you do every day makes a real difference, not only for the people who you serve, but for the policymakers engaged in the work of building greater opportunity in our urban communities. In the Senate, I'm a member of the Senate Finance Committee, which sets our national tax and health policies, as well as the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, where I serve as a senior Democrat on housing, mass transit, and community development. These positions have put me on the front lines of the fight against the administration's efforts to undermine federal programs and protections so vital to our urban communities, and particularly communities of color. We've seen this president roll back fair lending protections for minority home buyers, give big corporations trillion-dollar tax cuts while advancing plans to raise rents on millions of people in federally subsidized low-income housing. I had a debate with Secretary Carson. He said that was going to somehow empower them at the end of the day. I don't know how raising rents in an extraordinary fashion on millions of people in low-income housing is going to empower them. To politicize the U.S. Census with a citizenship question that is designed to discourage minority participation, and the list goes on. In times like these, I depend on the insights of organizations like this one to help me fight back and to stay informed about what's going on in our communities, the successes, the challenges, the well-being of our cities and everyone who calls them home. So now, more than ever, we have to stick together. We have to stand up for what we believe in. We have to stand up for every child's right to good schools and safe neighborhoods. We've got to stand up for equal rights under the law and equal opportunity for all. We have to stand up for the addicted and the formerly incarcerated. We have to stand up for the rights of immigrants. I live in a country where I never believed I would see children torn away from their mothers and put in cages in the United States of America. That is not the America that I know. We've got to stand up for the disabled Medicare recipient and the elderly public housing resident, the struggling single mother and the striving student with big dreams. That's our shared mission, to stand up for the rights and dignity of everyone who lives in our communities, and to make sure that every family has a fair shot at the American dream, not just some. So as New Jersey's senior senator, I want you to know you can count on me as a friend, as an ally. You have my hand in friendship and the power of my office to work together to make these dreams a reality. Thank you so much for what you do, and congratulations, Paul.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Bob Menendez. And now please enjoy a brief intermission for dinner service.
In his speech at the March on Washington, Dr. King said that they had come to Washington, D.C. to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. And he went on to say that now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. For 20 years, the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice has been on the front lines of social and racial justice to make real the promises of democracy here in New Jersey. But the promise of democracy cannot be made real in New Jersey until we build systems that connect people of color to wealth.
Dr. Martin Luther King actually visited Newark and walked along these streets when he went to a church down the street from here. What Dr. King said in one of the final speeches of his life is that now our struggle is for genuine equality, and that means economic equality. Because what does it profit a man to be able to sit at an integrated lunch counter if he can't afford to buy a hamburger and a cup of coffee? New Jersey has one of the largest racial wealth gaps in the entire country. Right now, the average net worth for a white family in New Jersey is more than $309,000 versus the average net worth for the average black family in New Jersey is only $5,900, and for the average Latino family, only $7,200. We are focusing on expanding employment opportunity through apprenticeship programs and working with our partners on Newark 2020, citywide hiring initiative. In housing, we're working to develop policies that would reinvest in communities of color and empower more people to become homeowners, which is the primary driver of building wealth and assets in this country. And we're working to help people have expanded access to credit and savings.
The promise of democracy cannot be made real until we're able to build a criminal justice system that treats all kids fairly. In New Jersey, a black child is 30 times more likely to be in prison than a white child, the highest racial disparity in America, even though black and white kids commit most offenses at about the same rate.
We're at a really urgent moment in time for youth justice transformation in New Jersey. In June of 2017, we had the launch of our 150 Years is Enough campaign to close New Jersey's youth prisons and reinvest funds into a community-based system of care. In January of 2018, we had the major closure announcement of Jamesburg and Hayes. In October of last year, we had Governor Murphy create the Youth Justice Task Force to oversee closure and reinvestment. But just a few days after the task force's first meeting, the state announced plans to build a new youth prison right here in Newark on the site behind me. And so a few short weeks ago, we joined 500 people at Westside High School right down the street. We had young people speaking, we had advocates, we had clergy members, we had parents to come together to say we don't need any more youth prisons in Newark or anywhere else in New Jersey. We need investment in our communities, we need front-end resources for our young people, and not telling them that incarceration is the only option we have for them.
And finally, we cannot make real the promises of democracy when 100,000 people with criminal convictions can't participate in it. To make real the promises of democracy, we need to restore the right to vote to nearly 100,000 people who are in prison, on probation, or on parole.
In March of 1986, I was incarcerated for a homicide, and I spent more than 30 years in prison, and I am currently on parole. I can't vote. I lost my voice. I lost my ability to connect with society. It made me feel like I wasn't a part of it. It made me feel less than human. It made me feel marginalized. You're silencing the people of color at a greater rate. They make up 15% of the population. They are approximately 50% of those that are disenfranchised. It takes the voice away from communities of color that are falling apart, because without a voice, who hears what the needs are of the community?
Because the system is going to be the system, the people have to be the people, inspired by the fierce urgency of now and determined to make real the promises of democracy.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President and CEO of the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, Ryan P. Haygood, Esquire.
Thank you so much, you all, and thank you for joining us to celebrate 20 years on the front lines of social justice. I can't tell you how humbling it is to stand before you to celebrate some amazing honorees and to take notice of where we are in this state. This year marks my 4th anniversary leading this mighty organization. And I am humbled and thankful for the opportunity to spend every day working with amazing communities, partners, supporters, a stellar board of trustees, and some of the finest advocates I know. And I'd like to ask the Institute's team, the staff, to please stand. I also want to recognize my best friend, my sharpener, my high school algebra tutor, my wife, Charity Haygood. I'd ask her to stand. Yeah. I call her Sunshine, and if the thing speaks for itself. She is an incredible person. She's a principal at Avon Avenue School. And Alan Lowenstein went to Avon Avenue School before she was the principal. but he went there. So we gather here tonight to lean in to the fierce urgency of now, which is the theme of our gala. We gather here tonight in a sober-minded way in the face of extraordinary challenges, not just in Washington, D.C., but right here in New Jersey, as the video makes plain, a state that has some of the starkest black to white racial disparities in America. And at the Institute, we are clear that these racial disparities reflect a system of oppression that is by design. As a result, then, we are charged with the awesome responsibility of fashioning a system of liberation to overcome the system of oppression, and that work begins from the ground up in our communities, not from Washington, D.C. down. For 2 decades, the Institute has been advocating to meet the fierce urgency of now and to build that system in order to make real the promises of democracy for people of color here in New Jersey. 20 years ago, Amy and Alan Lowenstein established a powerful founding board of trustees, including their sons, John and Roger, here with us tonight, and their families. One of this year's honorees, Ted Wells, Zulema Farber, Melville Miller, John Degnan, and Richard Roper, who also joins us tonight, and including several members who are no longer with us. The former U.S. Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach, Dr. Bob Kervin, and Judge Dickinson Debevoise. And our board chair who opened us up tonight, Doug Eakley. And as he mentioned, Doug Eakley in turn hired our first legal intern, Senator Cory Booker, who received our National Social Justice Award. At our founding, Alan Lowenstein determined that the Institute had to be, quote, totally independent. Without that independence, he said, there would be pressure on the Institute that would influence the Institute's positions brought to bear by a number of folks, including state administrations. 20 years later, the Institute's independence is central to who we are, and it inspires all of our work. Indeed, because we are independent, we recently championed the passage of automatic voter registration in New Jersey, the $15 minimum wage, an independent prosecutor bill, the defeat of a problematic redistricting bill, sweeping apprenticeship reform that's making its way quickly through the legislature, and the transformation of policing and youth justice in New Jersey. As Andrea mentioned in the video last month, more than 500 people, many of you are in the room tonight, locked arms in a powerful expression around a proposed and now defeated youth prison site here in Newark. Folks locked arms all the way across South Orange Avenue, down Grove Street, and across 14th Avenue to urge New Jersey to make deep investments in building kids of color, not in building prisons for them in Newark or anywhere else in New Jersey. But we recognize that the fierce urgency of now requires us to do more. The promises of democracy will remain illusory until people of color in New Jersey are able to overcome the load-bearing walls of structural racial inequality. Until we ensure that people of color live in a society that respects their humanity. Until we create reparative systems that build wealth in communities of color separated from it. Until we fundamentally transform New Jersey's shameful youth and adult criminal justice systems. And until we build a powerful democracy that restores voting rights to nearly 100,000 people, including our colleague Ronald Pierce, who are denied that precious right because of a criminal conviction. the importance of speaking truth to power reminds me of a story that my pastor, Philip Gilmore, who opened us up tonight, said about the role of truth tellers in a society. He said that truth tellers use their voices to make sure that people in positions of power are held accountable to the people. The truth tellers stand with people in positions of power when they're doing right by the people. And this, of course, people in positions of power love. But because truth tellers will also hold people in positions of power accountable, the truth tellers will also be disliked by people in positions of power. Bernice King recently said this about her father. At the time my father was killed, a poll reflected that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the most hated man in America. Most hated. Many who quote my father now and use him to deter justice would likely hate him too if they really knew him. Dr. King's example teaches us that whether disliked or beloved, truth tellers are, by their very nature, required to tell the truth because they too are accountable to the people. And that's who we are in this room. That's who we are at the Institute for Social Justice. Truth tellers. And so as truth tellers, and as we celebrate 20 years, it's important to be committed to this particular truth. That because the system is going to be the system, the truth tellers must be the voice for the people. No matter how uncomfortable it may make some people in positions of power, the people, inspired by the fierce urgency of now, must remain committed to building systems that make the promises of democracy real for those too long denied access to them. And with your continued partnership, the Institute for Social Justice will be here until we make real those promises. Thank you for standing with us. God bless you, and thank you for coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President and CEO of the Institute, Ryan P. Haygood. Please welcome the President of the PR and marketing firm Zinn, Graves & Field, and wife of the late Governor Brendan Byrne, Ruthie Zinn Byrne.
Hello, everybody. Okay. Our honoree burst on the New Jersey scene just 2 years ago, but in that very short time, she has made such a mark. She's on, I couldn't even write all the boards down, but I will tell you, State Chamber of Commerce, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, right here, Choose New Jersey. She's spoken all over the state, and this is very gender specific, ladies, but she was the publisher of Cranes. I don't know how many other women have been publishers, right? Applause line. Okay, that's good. Amazing. She's a journalist for the Wall Street Journal, The Economist. Probably most of all, she's survived 2 teenage daughters. Okay, that's, get to that, right? She is funny, fun, glamorous, generous, and a good friend, and I would like to welcome Jill Kaplan. Pleasure, all yours.
All right, thank you, Ruthie. She's incredibly generous with her words, and I thank her for all that she has done on behalf of our great state. And Brian, I want to congratulate you. This is my first inaugural event, and I have to say that you and your staff and the organization, you have wowed me, you have impressed me. I have been really moved by the dedication and commitment of everyone that is a part of the magic that you do. So thank you, congratulations. And I also want to thank my fellow honorees. It is truly an honor to be here tonight on behalf of United Airlines to be receiving the Corporate Leadership Award from the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and to be recognized with such an extraordinary group of visionaries and luminaries who are doing so much for our state. As Ruthie alluded to, I've only been in the aviation industry for a very short period of time, and so many folks in this room have been unbelievably generous to me and my learning curve, and I want to thank everyone very, very much. What drew me to this role as I interviewed with folks at United was this incredible passion and commitment that the executives all the way through our organization had in investing in Newark as home. And across the region, I like to say that we have 7 very important children, but there's really one child who our family loves the most. I am a little bit biased here in Newark. But for more than 30 years, we've been committed to the communities that we serve, and we are proud to be the 6th largest employer in the state of New Jersey. We have 14,000 strong employees here at Newark, and the impact of the operation delivers 81,000 jobs and almost $16 billion worth of economic output. And we understand and believe very deeply in the need for supporting workforce redevelopment initiatives. And as Ruthie spoke about a little bit, as a journalist, I interviewed lots of people who had come across really hard times and didn't believe in themselves and would say, I don't know how to get out of bed. I don't know how to go on an interview. I don't feel really good about myself. And that's the real deal. And that is really hard. And so to be able to help to support the initiatives that we do is personally one of the reasons that I came to United, is because that's the work that is gratifying and important, and so many other folks here are committed to that as well. And over the years, United has leveraged multiple tools in support of local recruitment strategies, including the provision of kiosks to aid employees who do not have access to computers, and sending HR experts to Newark One-Stop Job Placement Agency to help train and to pre-screen what we're looking for at United. Additionally, we were very proud to be one of the first folks to join on to Newark 2020, which is an important initiative that we are very proud to be a part of and part of the coalition. And Ruthie said, actually, I can't believe 2020 is next year. I can't believe it either. It's next year. And we are excited to be on a track to be able to deliver on those results. However, our work doesn't stop there. 13 years ago, actually, this lovely young woman, who will hate me for saying this, Monica Slater-Stokes, helped, yes, Monica, thank you, very much was instrumental in helping pilot a fabulous program for college students and recent graduates in Newark and Elizabeth and surrounding areas, so that we are able to help folks support their interest and hopefully engage and attract them to the aviation industry and be able to shed a light on all the extraordinary opportunities that can happen within the aviation industry. Last summer, we also were very proud to be able to make 2 grants to the total of $1 million that help to further our initiative of supporting workforce redevelopment programs with supporting the Food Bank of New Jersey, the Food Bank of New Jersey and the Urban League of Essex County. But we certainly don't stop there and support organizations throughout, including the Food Bank of South Jersey, the Newark Museum, this lovely institution that John runs, Newark Arts, and the Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District are just a few of the examples of what we're proud to be able to do. And as a company, we connect people and we unite the world, and we are dedicated to giving back to our community. So today, I stand here humbled to be able to accept this award on behalf of the 14,000 employees here at Newark Liberty International. We are incredibly grateful and honored to be bestowed such an extraordinary award. So thank you very, very much, and congratulations again to our fellow honorees.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 Corporate Award honoree, United Airlines, accepted by Jill Kaplan, President of the New York, New Jersey region. Joining us now is Vice Principal at College Achieve Patterson Charter School and a Commissioner on the Patterson Board of Education, Manuel E. Martinez.
Good evening, and thank you. An old Chinese proverb states that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is now. Oftentimes, in our respective endeavors, the fruits of our labors do not become evident for quite some time. As business people, executive directors, and educators alike, this is far too often the case. Who we are and what we do is essentially invest. We invest our time, our efforts, and our energies today in the hopes of a better tomorrow. But in order to effectively do this, it takes vision, planning, and precise execution. I'm proud to stand here this evening and speak about someone who embodies all of these characteristics. My cousin, Martin Vergara. Martin is living proof that investments made both yesterday and today can and will pay tremendous dividends in the present, but in the future as well. Basically, he and I are just two kids from Patterson trying to make our city all the better and our country a better place for all the generations to come. Martin has been doing this in so many ways for so many years, be it through his nonprofit baseball organization, Next Pitch, where he works with the youth of our city, teaching them not only baseball skills, but more importantly, life skills, by sitting on the board for the New Jersey Community Development Corporation, or for the Community Charter School of Patterson, where he and I got to work together closely for several years, or as now the sitting chair of the Hamilton Partnership, which helped create our country's 397th national park, just a stone's throw away from where we grew up in Patterson, the Patterson Great Falls. Martin has been and will continue to invest with all of his heart into our great city. But by far his greatest investment has been in his family. As an amazing son, brother, cousin, father, and husband, Martin, I can't be more proud of the man that you have become, and I look forward to all the things that await. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome tonight's recipient for the Corporate Leadership Award, Mr. Martin Vergara.
Well, thank you, Manny. Can't find my remarks, but that's all right. Go with it. It's all good. It's great to be introduced by my cousin, who's done so many great things in our community and through his leadership in education as a vice principal in Patterson and his broader efforts in community outreach. So thanks again, Manny. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Morgan Stanley, it is my honor to be here in front of this impressive crowd of such committed people committed to making a tangible and lasting impact on our New Jersey communities. At Morgan Stanley, we share in this commitment. When you walk into the lobby of our headquarters, the only words you'll see are our 4 core values: doing the right thing, leading with exceptional ideas, putting clients first, and of course, giving back. And we give back in 2 ways. One is through our partnerships to deliver our focus on children's health and wellness. And the second is through supporting the interests of our employees. In terms of children's health and wellness, we focus on our partnership with New York Presbyterian to deliver Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital. Hopefully many of you have heard about it. And then we leverage our best asset, our employees, many of which are here tonight. We couple our financial support with their ingenuity and passions to increase the breadth of our impact. So this is why we're here tonight. Specifically, 2 of our top financial advisors, 2 of our best practitioners, Stephanie Whittier and Ed Sweeney, right here, and their passion are the reason why I'm up here tonight. But this honor is not only important for my colleagues, it's also important for me personally. As Manny mentioned, being from Patterson, born and raised, and a current resident, I've seen many of these issues. I've seen a lot of the injustice facing our community and our friends and family. Things like lack of access to affordable housing, the struggles for families to save, the development of youth prisons. The list goes on, and this is why the work that Ryan and team are doing is so important. And so with that, it's also important for all of us. And it's also why my beautiful wife and I are never leaving Patterson. Right? We bought our first and last house, and we're never leaving. She shares in my belief that it's important, it's not just a nice thing to do to give back to the town that made you, but it's your responsibility. And so with that, it's our goal to make sure that we develop and give all the untapped talent the opportunities to maximize their potential, so that years from now, you and I are not perceived as being exceptions, but instead the norm. So, again, as my cousin Manny mentioned, I've been involved in some great causes over the years, but being involved with you all here tonight is truly a highlight for me, and hopefully beyond. So, in closing, I would like to thank Ryan, Linda, the Board of Trustees, and all of you for your support here tonight. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 Corporate Award honoree, Morgan Stanley, accepted by Martin Vergara II, Head of Strategy Private Wealth Management. And now to introduce our final honor of the evening, please welcome to the stage a partner in the litigation department at Paul Weiss, Johannes Cleary.
Hello, everyone, and congratulations to Ryan and the Institute staff and board on 20 years of doing justice. For most of you, these two honorees need no introduction at all. Talking about Nine and Ted is like talking about Michelle and Barack. Maybe Jay-Z and Beyonce. Jada and Will. You just say their names and everyone knows who you're talking about. And everyone seems to have a story about how Nine and Ted have inspired them, supported them, mentored them, encouraged them, fed them. I first met Nine and Ted about 15 years ago when I was working at the Institute as a Lowenstein Community Development Fellow. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do before going to law school. And I also met Nina's sister, Kathy Weaver, at the time, and she insisted that I get myself out of Newark and go to law school. I'm back. Fortunately, over the last 10 years or so since I've been practicing, my wife Marcy, who's also a lawyer, and I have been fortunate to spend a lot more time with Nina and Ted, and we count ourselves among the many people who have benefited greatly from their generosity and their example. I'll resist the temptation to go through their resumes. You have their bios, and they both have Wikipedia pages. But Nina, of course, has a uniquely broad and diverse career with leadership and executive roles in the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and academia. Ted is widely regarded as one of, if not the best trial lawyers in the country. And of course, one common thread through both of their careers is their deep commitment to social justice and to serving the public good. Since I'm skipping their resumes, I can make this very short. For me personally, one of the things about Nine and Ted that is most impressive and impactful is how much time and energy they devote to mentoring young lawyers and young professionals, especially young lawyers of color. For me and my wife, Nina and Ted have become not just mentors, but also friends and role models. After law school, as we started our careers, one thing we realized is that we both wanted to have successful legal careers and raise a family and be active in our communities and have fun, maybe travel once in a while. And of course, most sane people will tell you that's just not possible. You can't have it all, but Nina and Ted seem to have figured out a way to do it all. Extraordinary careers, a lovely family, I see Phil here. They do seemingly endless public service, and they still manage to throw the best parties. So fortunately for my wife and I, they've been willing to be completely open books about how they've done it, and more importantly, very real about some of the challenges. So there have been a few times, maybe more than a few times, where my wife and I were trying to figure out some major decision about life, work, or family, or some combination. And my wife, before saying what turned out to be the right answer, she prefaced it with, well, you know, Nina says. Or there are times when she was giving me unsolicited but ultimately accurate career advice that she prefaced with, well, you know what Ted does is. So I'll always be grateful to Nina and Ted for being that exceedingly rare model of a true power couple. And I'm more than happy to congratulate them tonight on receiving the much-deserved Alan and Amy Lowenstein Social Justice Award. And now you'll hear from David Mills, who is a professor at Stanford Law School and a longtime family friend of Nina and Ted.
So I'm from California, so I think more about Oprah and Gail. I am from Hillside. I actually am from Newark. I was born here, brought up here, then we moved to Hillside, and I lived in Newark in New Jersey for 40 years. Can you believe 40 years? I don't know, Ted and I, how we get so friggin' old. In any event, I want to introduce, and I'm not going to spend more than a minute or two because those were fantastic remarks. And everybody knows about Ted. Ted's one of the great lawyers, in fact, probably the greatest lawyer I've ever met in my life, other than me. And we have done some crazy stuff together, but that's not for tonight. And Ted told me I couldn't spend a lot of time on Ted, which is difficult to do because Ted always spends a lot of time on me. So I have to be careful here, but we're going to talk about Nina. Nina, to me, is a person of great integrity, great passion, and great love. She is a terrific human being, a dear, dear friend, and has been a mentor to me in my whole life. I am totally in love with Nina. Ted is impossible. Nina is possible. But of course, there's Ted, and there's Nina, and then again, Nina gets to be Secretary of State. So who does she hassle the most? The press secretary. Now, who was the press secretary? Her daughter. Talking about Ted and Nina, you can't not talk about their wonderful children. Phil is my godson and a dear, dear person. Teresa is terrific. I wish that she was here, but Phil is here with us, and we're very happy to have him. The only last comment I want to make is that Alan Lowenstein, AVL, was truly, he brought me to the law firm. I would never have gone to Lowenstein Sandler if it wasn't for him. He recruited me. He talked his partners into taking me on, despite the fact that I was some idiot. And he's just a person who really imbued in me and in Ted and in Nina this great notion of giving back. It was all about giving back. It was all about being a person who supported social justice causes. This award in his name couldn't be more aptly named, and I cannot think of two people who are more deserving of this award than my dear, dear friend and colleagues, Ted and Nina Wells. Congratulations to them.
You know, if I was a really smart woman, what would I do at this point? Just say, thank you, and sit down. I mean, after hearing from Johannes and David, there is nothing more to say. Michelle and Barack? I mean, why would I open my mouth? I mean, really, you guys, that was awesome. I mean, I'm almost in shock. I'm almost speechless. Was it recorded? Woo! Wow. I tell you, that was incredible. And I'm trying to say something good about Ryan, but Ryan, I can't even talk. But I have to say so much about Ryan, his staff, his team. Oh my goodness. And our board, we just click with Ryan and his team in a way that is beyond phenomenal. I'm just breathless tonight. And Ryan, you just captured everything, all the phenomenal accomplishments. So, thank you so much to the Institute for honoring both Ted and me and doing it together. I think this is one of the greatest awards we've ever received. More about that in a minute. Wow. Ted and I have been on a great journey together for over 50 years. We are each other's biggest advocates. Our journey began in Washington, D.C., where my parents moved after the Brown versus Board decision. My oldest sister, Kathy's here, she's not my oldest. My oldest sister had attended a segregated school in Maryland. So my 6 siblings and I went to integrated schools. My dad worked for the post office and had 3 other jobs. And although he did not attend college, he knew how to fight discrimination at every point in our lives. When my high school guidance counselor told me not to bother going to college, my father was at my school the next day. He made sure we all went to college and beyond. He said it was our greatest weapon against discrimination. Ted and I went to college very socially conscious and active in the struggle. My college senior thesis was Community Organization, Politics of the Poor. And I organized tenants against unfair landlord practices. And in college, Ted was representing students whom he believed were not being treated fairly because of their race. Then off to law school we went, and then to New Jersey for Ted to clerk and for us to practice law. We really got lucky. Ted joined Lowenstein Sandler, and we met Alan and Amy Lowenstein. We'd hear wonderful stories about how Amy and Alan took out a bank loan to bring the symphony to Newark's parks for residents after the riots. And so many examples, so many more examples of amazing civic engagement, social action, and philanthropy. I wanted to transition from the Newark Corporation Counsel's office to corporate law, but there were no women or lawyers of color there. Ted was being mentored by Alan and others, and during one of our talks with Alan, I asked him to mentor me. Guess what? I became a corporate lawyer. Alan and Amy's values meshed with ours, and they encouraged us to be great community citizens as well as good lawyers. So we had 2 great role models as we embarked on our careers. So we are deeply honored and very thankful to receive this award tonight. Many thanks to everyone for their support of this great organization, and congratulations to the other honorees, Senator Booker, Jill Kaplan, United Airlines, Martin Vergara, Morgan Stanley, and we just thank you all for being here. And Ted has a few words. Actually, we're going to let Ted have a few words.
Hard act to follow. I've been, we met at 15. We got married at 21. We'll be married 48 years, Christmas Day. Well, if you count when we met, we're way into the 50s. And, two of the luckiest decisions in my life were, one, the night I met Nina. I was 15. I was a football player. My football team, at the end of the season, they rented a bus to take us to Baltimore to see the Baltimore, back then it was Baltimore Bullets. And I had a date, and I sat in the seat in front of Nina, who was the date of somebody else. I was a public school kid. And she was a Catholic school girl who had accepted to go out with one of my teammates. And as life would have it, I saw her in the back and I fell in love, I'll be honest with you. So we get off the bus and I say to my teammate, I said, look, the girl you with, are you serious? He said, no, it's just a date. I said, well, I'd like to talk to her, is that okay? He said, well, I'd like the girl you were with. Okay, so we had a deal. He gave me a number. So I had a friend, I'm 15, I have a friend call her, and they called me Toki. That was my nickname from the time I was 1. And, I didn't become Ted until I went to college. I didn't want to, when I got to college, I didn't want to explain where Toki came from. So I became Ted. But in my yearbook, I'm Toki, and anybody from DC knows me as Toki. So I had my friend calling. I was a pretty good football player, so people knew who I was. And my friend, I'm listening on the other end of the telephone. And so my friend says, well, Toki, saw you the other night at the game, and he'd like to know, could he take you out? And I never forget, she says, let me tell you something. Toki's a hoodlum, and all his friends are hoodlums. My boy says, yeah, but he's in honors. So given that, I was a smart hoodlum, she gave me a shot and let me take her out. I took her to the hot shops, and I didn't know she could eat so much. I didn't have any money. Her father worked in the post office. My mother worked in the mailroom at the Navy Department. We were 2 poor kids. And we got there and I asked my mother for a few dollars. And then she ordered a steak sandwich, orange freeze, onion rings. I had a Coke. But we hit it off and got engaged in college and married our senior year. Now that was the first lucky moment in my life when I met her. The next important moment was when I decided with Nina to stay in Newark. We had never been in New Jersey in our lives. We were both from D.C., thought we were going back to D.C. to practice. I came to Newark for 1 year. The clerk on the U.S. Court of Appeals for Judge John Gibbons, who is a former honoree of the Institute. And I'd been with Judge Gibbons in that Newark courthouse. My co-clerk was Sam Alito. I'm like Forrest Gump. I went to college. I went to college with Clarence Thomas. I was clerk with Sam Alito. They say I'm a good lawyer. I have not been able to change the minds of either of these right-wing conservatives. But Judge Gibbons said, you should stay in Newark. And I'll never forget, I told him, I said, Judge, nobody knows me and I don't know nobody. And he said, no, you should stay. And I said with great hubris, arrogance. I said, Judge, I'm a Harvard JD MBA. I said, what am I going to do? How am I going to tell my friends I'm going to Newark? All my friends are going to New York, D.C., L.A. And Judge said, well, I'm a Harvard Law Review myself. I said, yeah, but you were born in Newark. I said, you know, and he said, no. You could have a great life here, and you should stay. And you should think about what you want to do with your life. And at that time, Nana and I, we had accepted a job. I accepted a job in Los Angeles. And that one year, Nana worked for Social Security over on Bergen Ave as a Social Security claims rep. It was a rough office. We got in the car, and I said, Judge, I'm going to go to California. Maybe I'll come back a year later. He said, you should go and practice with Alan Lowenstein and Matt Boylan at the Lowenstein firm. And we got in the car. We had an old Toyota Corona, no air conditioning. And we left to drive across the country from Newark to Los Angeles in this car in August with no air conditioning. And we kept debating the whole time, should we go back to Newark? Are we doing the right thing? And we were in Texas, right, Junction, Texas, and it came over on the radio. It was 100 degrees that day. The hottest place in the country was Junction, Texas. And we decided right there, we're going back to Newark. And what little furniture we had shipped to LA, so we had to finish the trip. And the firm I accepted a job with in LA, Paul Hastings, it took me 10 days to get the courage to tell them that I was going back to Newark. And they thought they looked at me, and I think they were glad, because they said, you got to be crazy, you're going to Newark from LA. And I said, yeah, and I called Lowenstein Sandler, and I said, I have no money. I can't even get back home. Do I still have a job? They said, yes. They sent me $2,000 to get back home, get back to Newark. We lived over in East Orange on Prospect Street. We had left, and we moved right back into that apartment. And it was the best decision for both of us. I want to say that. You know, we both joined the Black Bar Association, the Garden State Bar. Nana joined ABWL, the Black Women's Bar. And we were a radical group. I mean, we had Junius Williams, who's here tonight. We had in that organization at one time 3 people, Junius Williams, Art Martin, Bob Pickett, who had been national presidents of the BALSA, the Black Law Student Association. And it was a radical group. I mean, in my first year, we ran Golden Johnson for Congress, because we had the nerve to think Newark, in all due respect, we love Peter Rodino, but we thought Newark deserved an African-American representative. And she didn't win, but years later, you know, we ran Donald Payne, and eventually we did win. But look, Alan Lowenstein, and we accept the award tonight on behalf of Alan and Amy, because Alan and Amy mentored us. He talked about the importance of social justice issues, of race relations, of the history of race relations. And one of the things that Alan knew, and we discussed often, was how it was going to take such a long time, not in one lifetime, but generations, to deal with issues of social equality and racial equality. And one of the things he did when he formed the Institute for Social Justice was he was trying to plant a seed, develop an organization that would last just not for 20 years, but for 100 years. And he did that because he realized that these issues of inequality, of institutionalized racism, be they directed at African Americans or Hispanics or women or gays, were so intractable and had been part of society for so long that, again, it was going to take 100 years. So we talk about the urgency of now, and I adopt that principle, but all of us must realize that this is a long-term battle. It's going to take a multiracial coalition, and that what Alan was trying to do at the tail end of his life, was to birth an organization that would be part of that long-term battle and that would last, again, not 20 years, not 40, but hopefully 100, because that's how long it will take us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Alan V. and Amy Lowenstein Social Justice Award to the almighty Nina and Ted Wells. And now please welcome back Ryan Haygood.
So folks, I just am gonna close us out, but please join me again in giving our honorees a round of applause. I do wanna close us out by sharing just one more personal reflection about our board member and honoree tonight, Nina Wells. And I've been thinking a lot about this moment, closing us out. And one thing that occurs to me is I think we're all made better by examples of excellence. Nina's example of excellence inspires us and makes us better because of her proximity to us and her accessibility. Nina generously shares her excellence with us. And as so many in the room can attest, Nina has poured into so many of us in this room, sharing her genius, her heart for social justice for the least among us, her creativity, her time, her laughter, her energy, her counsel, her enthusiasm, her optimism, her resources, including her home, her relationships, her feedback, her counsel, and her encouragement. And she has done so in the Nina Wells way, with the fierce urgency of now, with independence and truth, boldness, righteousness, sophistication, grace, style, warmth, and conviction. It's really difficult to imagine a world without Nina and her contributions to us all, and I'm thankful that we don't have to imagine that world. And so I ask you to please join me one more time in celebrating Nina. So many of us in this room are better because of her, especially me. And as I close, because we're talking about someone who's made us better, I will close with an excerpt from his autobiography, our founder, Alan Lowenstein's autobiography, which he wrote near the founding of the Institute. He wrote, "At this writing, the Institute is just getting underway. Its value to the state of New Jersey and its impact on the social needs of people here are yet to be determined. Hopefully," he said, "the Institute will be my final significant contribution to the welfare of New Jersey." 20 years later, Alan and Amy Lowenstein's significant contributions to New Jersey's welfare live on in so many ways, including through the Institute and all of us. And so I thank you for standing with us to celebrate 20 years of social justice on the front lines. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. God bless you, and thank you so much.